Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to start the Sanhedrin daf Samach Zayin. We're going to begin on the very top of Samach Zayin with Alf by the new Mishnah, which, as we've been learning in this parak, the various averos in which the punishment is skill, including hamesis. Someone who is a mesis tries to convince someone to worship Avodah Zarah, zehedyet. This is referring to a basic, simple person. They get skila. However, says Rashi, Avol nasi shehi says ein b'skil el b'chenek, as we're going to see in the Gemara, that if you're a nasi that does the same thing, you don't get the strong death penalty of skila, but rather that of chenek, which is an interesting question why he gets a lower punishment. Anyway, v'amesis zehedyet. So v'amesis is referring to an individual, namely that you were only doing this to one person. However, if you're a mesis as a rabbim, if let's say you try to convince like an irni dachas and they end up worshiping idols, then the death penalty is chenek. Again, it's pretty hard to understand why one person is a more severe punishment than many, but that's what we'll see in the Gemara. Omer, if a person says, quote, yesh yira b'makam pliny, I have this yira, I have this avodah zarah in such a place, and kach ochelos kach shaisa, and it gives food and drink. Kach mativa, it does good if you worship it. Kach maria, it's going to do bad if you don't worship it. So that is the basic expression, trying to get people to worship an idol. Basically, you're trying to fearmonger and tell them if they don't worship this idol, then something bad's going to happen to you. If you do, something good's going to happen to you. Okay. Then the Mishnah says like this: Kol chai b'miso shebatayra ein machminin alein chutz mizu. When it comes to any form of misa in the Torah, we don't try to entrap them by getting them to sin, if you will. If you know that they're already sinful, we're not going to try to get them to sin again. But when it comes to mesis, we don't care. Amul shnayim, he says to two people, Hein Edav, you're my witnesses. Umavian oisel basin, bring him to basin. The salkin oiso, you can give him skila. Now this is even without hasra. We said that in addition to a chaver, someone who's a talmid chacham, a mesis also does not need hasra. You can kill them without any warning. So that's because but you still need two witnesses. However, Amr echad, you say to one, Hu aymer yeshli chaverim. I have a lot of friends that write some mikach that they want to do this avodah zarah. And of course, your intention is to really get this guy in trouble. So, im haya arum, if this guy was smart, this mesis, he doesn't want to speak in front of them because he's afraid maybe they're really aiding against him. So you could put your witnesses behind a fence so he doesn't see them. And he says to him, Amar, tell me again, what did you say to me when we were alone? So when we were still alone, right? So he says to him, after he tells him, it's good if you worship it. So he says one saying, how could you leave Hashem in heavens and you're going to go and worship stones and wood? Doesn't make sense. So if he does tshuva, that's actually good. We don't want a person to fall. We don't want a person to fail. It's better that he should be chayzebo. But if he says kachi chayvoisenu, this is our chiyuv, we have no choice. Kach yafalanu, it's good for us. Then ha'imdin machriya geder mavien oisel abeistin v'soykan oiso. Then all of a sudden the people that are behind the curtain, so to speak, magically can come out and he's going to get skilled. Ha'imr, a person says avoid, elech v'avoid, serve, let's serve, or nelech, we will go and serve, avanavoid, we will go and serve, esbach, sacrifice, elech the esbach, we went and served, nelech v'nizbach, we will go and serve, aktir, let's bring spices, frankincense, and the like. Elech ve'aktir, nelech ve'naktir, we will go. Ansech, let's pour some libations. Elech V'ansech nelech v'nansech. We will go and do this, and pour libations. Eshtachve bow elech v'eshtachve nelech v'neshtachve. All these different lashonos is considered to be a mesis, and you are going to be chayev. Now the Tosfos Yom says that you need 2 witnesses behind the wall. The question is, why not 1? So since it's a trap, the Chachamim were machmer, interestingly enough, because you could say, well, aren't you 1? So why is that? So unless you want to say that there's different shitas that maybe both witnesses have to see each other, maybe it's achas. So ayin Tosfos Yom Tov. It's good kasha. So let's continue with the Gemara. Hamesis ze hedyet. So if you're a mesis and you get skila, that's only a hedyet. Time of the hedyet. Hanavi bechenek, as we already saw in Rashi, that if it's a navi that is mesis other people, so in that situation, he says, in the name of Hashem, let's go and worship idols, so his death penalty will be bechenek. But mesis as a hedyet, time of the yachid, harabim bechenek. As we said, it's only if he does it to an individual, but if he's mesis the rabim, the multitude, like irdi dachas, then the death penalty is chenek. So masnisimani, who's this like? Or Shimon hidasanya, navi shehediach beskila. However, Rabbi Shimon oimer bechenek. Rabbi Shimon says that when you have a navi who is trying to entice people to sin, so the death penalty is only chenek, because he's a navi, as opposed to a simple person. And also, when it comes to like irnidachas, which means barabim, so again, Rav Shimon says you get chenek. So even though it's actually a machlokas, some people say it does, unlike our Mishnah, that even if you're mesis the rabim, or you're a navi, you still get skila. This is a machlokas. So ema seifa. So let's look at the latter part of the Mishnah. Hamidiach zel eimer neach v'navad avodas kachavim. Let's go and worship this idol. V'yamar Yehuda Marav medichi irnidachas shanu. This is actually talking about the case of irnidachas. Now, if it's irnidachas, that's tayin l'Rabbanan, because we just said that this whole Mishnah is talking about the punishment of skila. So Reish Rav Shimon v'Seifa Rabbanan, Ravina Oimer Kol Rabbanan. Really, the whole Mishnah is the Rabbanan. V'lozu avzu katani. What does that mean? V'lozu avzu katani. Says Rashi Koimer, Ikash shalach listening mesis as a rabim. So maybe just mention the case of mesis a rabim. Though listening mesis as a yachid. The pshita the kul maidaba b'skila. Right? Why just mention the case of a yachid? Everyone knows you get skila. So urchlatana lemisti hachi tana milsa bereishta pshitale, because we already know in the reish it's pashit that you get skila for a yachid. V'lo zu the mesis yachid bilvad b'skila, says Rashi. El avzu the mesis rambam b'skila. So in other words, you could actually read the Mishnah that it's a lo zu avzu. By the case of a yachid, there's no questions, no machlokas, you get skila. However, mesis the rambam, our Mishnah holds that the din is also skila. Rapapa Eimer Kikatani Mesis Zehedyet. When we say that Mesis is referring to a hedyet, it's lehachmana. That's specifically to the notion of entrapment. That we will do this only for a hedyet, not for anyone else. The sign of Shar Kol Chayvi Misa Shabbatayra Ein Machminin Alein Chutz Mizu. It says except for this. Keitzad Oisen Lo. Kesed oisin lo, madlikin lo asaner bebeis hapanimi. We light candles in the inner rooms. Umoshivin lo eidim bebeis achitzain, and we leave the witnesses in a darker room on the outside. Kadeshi heinu royin oiso, so they could see him. V'shem is koi, they can hear him. V'inu ro oisin, but they can't see. He can't see the witnesses. V'lo oimer lo, he says, Emer mashi amartu. Tell me what you told me b'yichud in private. V'lo oimer lo, and he tells him. And he says, how can you not serve Hashem? You're going to avodas kacham, you're going to worship idols. So he does tshuva good. We have no choice, we have to worship this idol. We add this, it's good for you to do this. So this is the second answer. Says Rashi, bebayis hapanimi bechedrei chadarim, in like the innermost rooms, v'yishu yari ledavar begolui, because he would be basically, he wouldn't say anything if he saw them. That's the idea behind that. Okay, so that is the second answer, that maybe there's a distinction when it comes to entrapment. Maybe we're only going to do that for the hedjit and not for anyone else. Question 9. Ezu mesis pligibo im misaso beskila obechenek. So one is by a navi shehesis, as well as a yachid shehesis as a rabbim. For example, a ir hanidachas. Okay, all right. This is the exact same question as question TB17. So let's just see that quickly. Be'ez mesis nechubo tanoim im misaso beskila obechenek. I wrote nasi mesis. Mesis is a rab, and I put in parentheses ir hanidachas, which is, of course, that's exactly the right answer. TB 17. Okay, let's now see the next Mishnah about hemidiach. Says the Masnis, hemidiach. So we talk about a mesis. What's a mediach? Zeh oimer. This is someone who says, Nelech v'nava d'avodas chacham. Let's go and worship an idol. Hamachashef, and that's pretty straightforward. And Rashi says, it's going to be talking about irdi dachas. It's not just to one person, to the multitude of people. It's mediach. Hamachashef, someone's engaged in witchcraft or sorcery. If he actually does something, he actually somehow does some, as Rashi says, mamish, then you get skila. However, not someone who just deceives someone through their eyes. It says Rashi, Marlu Brias ki iluhu oisa ve'inu oisa klum. You have you're some with mirrors or sleight of hand. That's what it means. So, interestingly enough, the Noam Elimelech asked that when it came to Paro in Parshas Ve'era, he said. It says Tenu li moifus. It could say Tenu lachem moifus. So it does say Tenu lachem moifus. So when he wanted a sign, he didn't say show me a sign to Moshe and Aaron. But he said show a sign that'll be wondrous to you too, because obviously otherwise, if it's something which only you were trying to trick me, so that's considered to be oiches as enayim. And that's not what Paro would be impressed by. He'd be impressed by something that would impress you. Okay, that's the Noam Elimelech. Rabbi Kiva Omer Mishum Rabbi Yeshua Shnayim Loiktim Kishuim. Two people gathering cucumbers. Echad Loiket Potter. Echad Loiket Chayiv. One could be gathering them and be Chayiv, and the other one could be Potter. So Rashi says when you're gathering these cucumbers, it's a form of kishuf. It's a form of witchcraft, and one person could be chayiv, and the other person could be pater. Gemara's going to elaborate on that, but that was, for some reason, kishuyim was the food of choice when it came to witchcraft. Okay, ha'oisa ma'isa chayiv. As we said, someone who actually does something or chayav skila. Ha'oiches enayim pater. According to this opinion, oiches enayim is pater. So the reason is because the cucumbers never moved from its place. So the first person basically did something with these cucumbers, but the second person was only oiches enayim. Says Rashi, marulanu ki'ilu. His kabsu kulam b'makam echad. It looked like they were all being gathered in one place. But the cucumbers never moved from their place, so therefore you're potter. So basically, if you're able to actually have done something with witchcraft, then you could be chayav. But the other person who does it, who's just being oiches esenayim with the cucumbers, but the cucumbers never moved there from its place, you're potter. Says the Gemara. So Omer Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rav. Medichi er nidachas shanukan. Again, when it comes to mediach, it's talking about someone who entices a multitude of people, and it's Dachas, the majority of the city are idol worshippers because of you. Machashefa, which is actually a lashon of lashon nekeva, still it's echad isha echad isha. Even a man could be chayiv for machashefa. When it came to like a witch, when we think of who's a witch, right? A witch is a woman, right? With those pointy black hats and green skin or something. I don't know. So anyway, but it just writes it in the language of that which is more commonplace, which are women. Misasim b'mas. So what type of death penalty does someone involved in machashefa get? It just says machashefa u'schaya, very short pasuk. So what does it mean they don't live? What happens to them? Rabbi Yosef Omer never come machashefa u'schaya, but never lo sichik kol neshama. It also says that none of them lo sichik kol neshama, that none of them should live. Mal holam b'sayif avkan b'sayif. So therefore, the punishment is sayif, with a sword. It's true, of course, that's the pasuk. But Nermul Holon, but at Har Sinai, it says im behema im ish yichya. So basically, a person was not allowed to go up Har Sinai. It said, and the pasuk says over there, Rashi quotes, "Ki sakul yisakel or yori yoroya." So it says beferish that's the punishment. By the way, so Rashi also quotes B'sayif by Sichain Oig v'Yakiu Yisrael v'Charev. Okay, but possibly we learn out from Har Sinai that the death penalty is not Sayif for a machashefa, but rather skila, because the pasuk says Kisaku Yisakel. Anyone who goes up the mountain when they're not allowed to will get skila. So tir skila. Oh, Rabbi Yosef, ani danti. I learned lo sichya about not living milo sichya. I'd rather learn out these two, which are comparable in language. Yata danto sichya milo yichya. They're different words. So Amul Rabbi Kiva ani danti Yisrael Yisrael. I learned out Yisrael from Yisrael. Shri behena kasav misas harbe. Yata danti Yisrael me'evd kachavim shlo riba behem kakasav el misa achas. So you're learning out from oig, sichain, even though maybe it has to write the same similar words, but we're better to compare yid to another yid. So therefore, that's the reason I'd rather learn out from Har Sinai. As we continue to Samach Zayin Mebeis, Misa Achas. Ben Azayomer Nemar Mechashefa Lo Sichaya. Again, same pasuk, obviously. However, Nemar Kol Shechem Imehim Los Yumos. Anyone engaged in bestiality will be killed. So Samchin Yin Loi. So why are these psukim written right next to each other? You can see in the Torah or then Shemos Chaf Beis. So Samchu Yin Loi Mashaychev Im Behema Beskilav Machashev Beskila. So he agrees that there's a din skila, but from a different source. Okay. Just because you have two psukim right next to each other, you're going to give someone skila. So we learn out from here, is actually in the third parak in Brachos, that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't learn smuchin. Actually, he does learn in Sefer Devarim, smuchin, as more over there elaborates, but typically throughout the rest of the four svarim, he doesn't. But even though Rabbi Yehuda doesn't learn out smuchim in order to say that a machashefa is chayiv misa with skila, he still holds the punishments the same, but he learns that elsewhere, from a different part of the Yud Gimel Midos Shatar Nidreshes Behen. El Oivi Adaini B'chlal. Oivi Adaini is a general category. Machashefim hayu of all forms of witchcraft. It's just a specific, a general part, a specific of all different forms of witchcraft. V'lomi Yatsu. So if the pasuk when he says Machashev L'Sachaya, so we know Oivi Adoni, which is a form of witchcraft and sorcery, that you should be chayiv misa. So why does it mention Oivi Adoni, which does tell us that the punishment is skila? And this again is one of the Yud Gimel Midos that we can look in the Siddur to see. It says Rashi, V'zu Midos B'tayra Kol Davar Shai B'chlal V'yatzim Klal B'chul. Right, so it's coming to tell you not just on this, but on Al Kol Kul Yatsa. So that is the one of the Yud Gimel Midos Shatar Nidreshes Bahain, and that's how Rabbi Yehuda learns. Rabbi Yehuda Namli Habi Oivi Adoni Shnei Ksum Boin Keachad Chol Shnei Ksum Boin Keachad in Melamdin. How do we know other witchcraft? Ov and Adoni are two separate things. So therefore, maybe only there to get skilled, but nowhere else. So Amr Rabbi Zechariah Ada Amra. From here we see Savar Rabbi Yehuda Shnei Ksum Boin Keachad Melamdin. It must be that we tackle learn out that even though they are two things, you can still make a binyan of from two. So even though there's two, and this is Gemara talks at great length in Masechtas Kedushin in the Mem Hay range, that in the Lamed Hay range, that the din is of Shnei Ksum Keachad is Machlokas and Melamdin. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Where does that come from? What is that Hebrew word for witchcraft or sorcery? So it's actually a breakup of a couple words. Shemachishin plamya shalmala. So machashefa, the mem and the chaf is from shemachishin, and also the shin. It weakens plamya shalmala, the decree of above. You have the pei, yud, and the mem. So machashefa is shemachishin plamya shalmala, that it has the ability to literally weaken this. Fine. So that is the play on words. So look at Rashi. Okay. Ein oid mulvadoi. But the truth is, there's only one God, only Hashem. Not all this other stuff is really just foolishness. Even when we're dealing with divrei kshafim, says Rashi, it has no power against Hashem. Even though there's some element of belief, at least back then, that witchcraft and sorcery actually did accomplish something by attaching yourself to Ruach HaToma and things of that nature, to shade him and the like. But if there's a gezerah by Kodesh Baruch Hu, it can't get removed. Tahi isasa dehavika mehadro lemishko afra metuti karider b'chanina. There's this woman that was taking earth from under the feet of Rabbi Chanina, and probably her motivation was to be able to do something with it. So Amrullah, so he said to her, Imas tayas zili avidi. So if you're successful, if you're trying to be successful, you should go. But if Hashem is with me, then ein oid mulvado ksiv. So if you're a successful person, then basically I can be in trouble. But if Hashem does not wish for me to be harmed, I won't be harmed. Says Rashi, V'im ha'makam chafetz bi. Hashem wants, l'suchli l'hara, you can't do anything bad. V'im suchum ito yotza yani mekablon. And if, let's say, you are successful, I'll be mekabel, because that must be the gezerah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We see that it does have the ability to push away, maybe even gezerahs. So you're right, it does have certain powers. However, when it comes in comparison to Rabbi Chanina, it has no power. Rabbi Ivo bar Nagri Rabbi Chia bar Abba Balatehem Elu Masi Shadim. When it talked about the Balatehem, that is referring to Maisa Shadim. And the Yad Ramah says that Shadim, Achashefa, are both Chayv Skila, even by Maisa Shadim. The Rosh says, since the Gemara makes a chiluk between the two, it must be Maisa Shadim is not the same Chiyav, and the Rosh actually discusses this at length, as well as Yoredeya Simin Kuf Ayin Tes Sif Tes Zayin, some matter through the Shechina. This is the Rosh. Okay. Anyway, let's continue. B'latehem elu masik shafim. That magician, they're magicians themselves. V'cheinu oimer v'es lahat hacherev hamis hapachas. That it's this form of magicians that turn things around. Amar Abaya, Hikbid Amana. If you see a witch and she's makbid on a certain kli, she's like watching it, shade, then shade. Then you have to be concerned of a shade. Delo kabed amana, if she's not using a specific vessel, then kshafim. So again, we see a distinction between a mice of a shade and that of kshafim. Rabbiya, hilchos kshafim ki hilchos Shabbos. Witchcraft is just like Shabbos. What? No, in certain ways. Yesh mehen b'skila. There's sometimes you can be chayav skila, like on Shabbos. Yesh mehen pater of aser. Sometimes you're not allowed to do it, but you won't get punished. Yesh mehen mutter l'chatchila. What is that? So ha'isa ma'isa b'skila. As we said, if you actually do something of substance of mamish, as Rashi said, then you get skila. Ha'oiches is inayim pater of aser. If you're just deceiving people or tricking people, you're pater, that can be killed, but it's aser to do. And mutter chatchila, when is it completely mutter? Could Rav Chanina, Rav Oishia, Kol Mali Shabbata Haviyaska Behilchos Yitzira. They would always be involved in the Hilchos Yitzira. Umirvahu Igla Tilta. They were able to make a calf, Va'achlile, and they were able to actually eat it. Amravashi Chazina Le Lavua de Karna de Nafetz. That he blew his nose, Vishadi Karichi the Dishiroi Minachire, and strips of linen came out from his nose. Okay, so what exactly does this mean? Avua de Karna, Chazinale Lavua de Karna. I saw this person, Avua de Karna, the Nuffets, when he blew his nose, that again, Shadi Krichi Dishiroi, that this beautiful linen came out of his nose. So the Yad Rama asks, why does the Gemara say something l'genai, that a Talmud Chacham like Avu de Karna, so it comes to teach us was Slamid Shani. He was just doing it in order to be able to understand what to do, but not necessarily that it's a genai. We're just showing that they were allowed to do it. This is l'chatchil mutter, therefore it's why it's mentioned. The Yomer HaChartumim El Par Etzbel Elokim He. So this is the famous pasuk regarding the third makkah of Kinim, that the Khartoumim who tried to duplicate all the makkos couldn't do it when it came to the makkah of Kinim for some reason. So Amar Eliezer Mikan Sheina Shed Yochol Livro Isbriya Pachas Mechasayra. The problem is it was smaller than a barley seed. It was too small to be able to duplicate. Papa Omer Helukim Afil Kigamunami Lul Matzibari. The truth is they can't even create a camel, something huge. Hi Michnifle V'Hai Lul Michnifle. The large animals they could gather and impress people. However, small things they're not able to gather together. So, fine. So it's let's see. Fine. So that is that. Let's continue. Amrulei Rav Rabbi Chia Lididi Chazili Hahutaya. I saw this Arab traveler, the Shakle with Safsare, that he was cut with a sword. The Gaidi Legamla, he stabbed a camel. V'tarafle Batavla, and he banged on bells. The come, and he was able to get up. So Amalei Labasar Hachi Dam. After that, blood. Parta Mihavi, and waste was there. Did you see any blood or waste? Ella hi achizas enayimhu havi. He was just trying to deceive you. He was just trying to trick you. But obviously he didn't actually do this, because otherwise you would have seen blood and everything all over the place. Zeiri ikla Alexandria shel Mitzrayim. Zeiri went to the famous city of Alexandria, Zavan Chamra, and he bought a donkey. Wine rather. Kimata lashkuye. When he wanted to drink it, Maya Pasher. It ended up melting. The Kam Gamla Dus. I was right before. It was a donkey. When it started to drink, when the donkey started to drink, Maya Pashar, it melted. It come Gamla dus Knisa. And all of a sudden the camel it became a plank of a bridge. So it looked like he bought an animal. Once it started connected to water, all of a sudden it turned into a plank of a bridge. Armule ilav ziri out of order for ziri loy havi mahadrin loch. It wouldn't have returned to you. So mi ika dezavin midi hachav loy badik le amaya. How would you be able to examine? How would you buy something? Why would you ever buy something and not examine it with water? Water is more powerful than tumah, we see, just like a mikvah. So water has certain powers and properties. But it's an interesting phenomena that anything that touches water becomes the thing itself, the real thing. So that's what that is. So it's interesting. The Pardes Yosef asks, when it says, with regard to the staff of Moshe, it says Gam Lazois. What does it mean Gam also? So Rashi says that when it came to the stick, and he threw the stick, and it turned into a snake, and then it swallowed all the other snakes, and then it became a staff again. So what was the chiddush about him taking the staff and hitting it with water? Is because now that he's going to hit the staff on the water, according to what we're seeing here, if it's machashefa, then the water will cause the item to go back to its original status, and therefore, because of that, it'll turn into a snake. But if you hit it, he hits the water with a staff, it will prove gam l'zois, that also when it came to the original throwing of the staff, that it was not a snake, it was not machashefa, but rather it was through Hashem. Interesting, Pardes Yosef. Yanai ikulahu ushpiza. So Yanai went to a particular inn. Amalahu ashkin maya, said, drink some water. Krivu shasisa. So they brought him flour and water. Shasisa, as the Gemara in Brachos talks about, it's font water. Chaza deka marchishan safasa. He noticed that she was moving her lips, which perhaps she was engaging in some type of incantation. Shada porta mine havi akrave. He poured a little bit of it out, and all of a sudden it became, or in it was a scorpion. Armulahu ana shasoy medidchu. I am taking from you. Atoy nami shas medidin. You take from me. Ashken. So she drank, and havi chamra. She turned into a donkey. So therefore, the truth is, it was not really a person. Once she had water was able to change it back to its original source. Rachva solk l'shuka. So he went to the market. Asa chaverta pashula, and she turned back. Chazi derachiv v'koi isisa b'shuka. So he started riding this isisa in the marketplace because it was really a donkey. Batal hasfardeya, he had this second mock of frogs. But chasas eretz mitzrayim, it covered up the whole earth. The truth is, Omer belezer svardeya achas haisa. There was actually only one frog, Heshritza, umolikol eretz Yisrael, and it filled up the whole world. Kitanai, Bikiva Omer svardeya achas haisa umolikol eretz mitzrayim, and it covered up the whole earth, whole Egypt. Omer Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah Kiva Malach Leitzel Haggadah. What are you doing by Haggadah? Kol midavar secha. Stop your speech. Leich Eitzel Negoyim v'Holois. Rabbi Kiva, you're better with all the more difficult sugis. Svardeya achas haisa sharkolahem v'heim bo'u. That there was one svardeya. Rashi says it whistled v'heim bo'u and they came. Says Rashi v'shamu kol svardim, that all the other Svardim heard this one frog, Shiba'oyo v'heim ba'u. Some people say that they hit the frog, but it's mashma from the Gemara over here that there was one frog initially, and then it was able to do some type of calling and get all the other frogs to come. Ayin the Marshal, what's the connection between frogs and the whole Gemara before that with kinim, kshafim, and shadim. And again, according to this, it doesn't talk about hitting, which in itself is an interesting question, why they would hit a frog, seeing that it would be counterproductive. Okay, let's maybe see another question. We're going to stop there. Okay, we did question 10. Let's see, TA 16. V'yomer hachartumim etzbel kimhi mehechin yadu she'en ze ma'isa shedim. How did they know this was not ma'isa shedim? So first of all, the pashut answer is because they weren't able to duplicate anything under the size of a ksayur, which is what I got. I got this half right. Second answer is, dehashedim rak mechanfe ubriyos katanos l'mechanfe. Right, this is the second answer, that you're able to gather up larger animals, but not smaller ones. And that's what Machashefa is able to accomplish. Not that they created anything, but they would be able to gather things up, only large animals and not very small ones. So either way, this was something which amazed the Khartoumim by saying Etzbel Elokim, or again, afilu kagam lo matzibari. They don't create anything, but high michnif lay, high lo michnif lay. The larger ones they are able to gather up, but the smaller ones not. Question TB 18. Madua itzrach kro lifter ben Sarah Moira Adkan.